Welcome back to Watch the Booker Man and to episode number 98 of Paul Heyman's TNA. Coming off the back of a bit of a disappointment on last week's episode, of course, the deal for Evolve on MTV was cancelled, and because of how the game works, you then can't get a new deal on another network for a set period of time. I have found a workaround, which, considering I think it's one of the stupidest features in the game, I was happy to do. I'll explain more of that when we come to Run Evolve, but we open the show with Kurt Angle and Roderick Strong against Matt Morgan and Mr. Anderson. Angle and Strong picking up the victory when Roderick Strong pins Mr. Anderson. The idea for the finish is that Matt Morgan gets taken out of contention, Kurt Angle hits an Olympic slam, then tags in Roderick Strong, who hits the sick kick to Mr. Anderson, pinning him for the 1-2-3, and that kind of brings their story full circle. Mr. Anderson attacked Roderick Strong on his first night in the company, and now, as Mr. Anderson's on his way out, Roderick Strong gets to pin him, and hopefully that can give him a bit of a boost. Roderick Strong, somebody who's always been at that mid-card level, but hopefully wins like this can help him gain that popularity and momentum to take him up to the next level. It's also noted during the match that the New Age of Honor, who are usually such a heavy presence on the show, none of them have been seen tonight, so it's kind of the idea that they're conspicuous by their absence, this group that are on such a mission to change or even destroy TNA, but none of them are here tonight. We also note that despite still putting in a really good performance, Kurt Angle suffers a bruised pectoral muscle. It doesn't sound like the most severe thing. I reckon he'll be able to work through that, but it's not great considering that in 10 days' time he has a World Heavyweight Championship match with Bryan Danielson. That's something we'll have to look into after the show. Morgan also off his game, meaning this match isn't as good as it should have been. I reckon it would have been maybe even mid-70s had those two things not happened. And after the match, Roderick Strong and Kurt Angle stand tall in the ring. The commentator's putting over how big of a name that Strong has just defeated in Mr. Anderson. Despite being in a bad condition, Mr. Anderson gets back to his feet, pushing Roderick Strong out of the way, staggering towards Kurt Angle to confront him. Anderson has some words to say to the Olympic gold medalist, but is instead taken down with another Angle slam. Kurt Angle then proceeds to drag Mr. Anderson out of the ring and up the ramp. We follow this all the way, cutting to the back, where Anderson is thrown out of the building by Kurt Angle. A few people in the back clapping this, happy to see Mr. Anderson get his just desserts for the bullshit that he pulled in recent weeks and just the way he's been. He is the asshole, and he's finally being kicked out of TNA. The commentators reminding viewers that this is Anderson's last night as a member of the roster, and Anderson doing a good job improvising as he always does, gaining heat to the World Heavyweight Championship storyline, which is good to see. And Angle, he's always a star in any segment he's involved in. Returning to the ring, following a recap of Madison Rayne's attack on Mickie James last week, the Knockouts champion is shown to have made her entrance. Mickie calls out Madison Rayne, who comes to the top of the ramp but refuses to join Mickie inside the six sides after what happened. She doesn't want to feel the wrath of Mickie, but Mickie tells her that she just wants to talk. There's going to be plenty of time for her to get that revenge on the Queen of the Mountain. Tonight, she just wants a discussion. Madison does eventually agree to enter the ring, but first pulls out the loaded glove and puts it on, so that's her level of protection. Mickie says that if Rayne needs her safety blanket, that's fine. But Madison didn't need to do what she did last week to get Mickie's attention. She knows how good Madison Rayne is, and if she wanted a shot, she should have just asked. Madison takes this as an invitation and challenges Mickie James for hard justice. Mickie accepts the challenge. With the deal sealed, Madison then goes to hit a knockout punch to Mickie, but her arm is blocked by the Knockouts champion. Rayne holds her hands up. She accepts that that was a cheap shot. She goes to leave before spinning back around and attempting it again. This time Mickie ducks, hitting a Mick kick and taking the glove off Madison Rayne, either tosses it away or takes it with her, but the idea is that Mickie is one step ahead of Madison Rayne at the minute, but as we know, the Queen of the Mountain always has something up her sleeve. We then get an interview with Frankie Kazarian, Christopher Daniels by his side, and losing heat to a major storyline there with a not very good promo, and he's asked about his partner being paired with AJ Styles to face CM Punk and Samoa Joe at Hard Justice. Kazarian says that he doesn't mind that at all, because he too intends to make it onto the card for the pay-per-view. Tonight, he's in a number one contendership match for an X Division title shot. He puts over Amazing Red and El Generico, who will also be competing, but says that his experience in the X Division and inside the six sides will make all the difference for him. The second match of the night sees ODB defeat Angelina Love, so a bit of a surprise, I'd say, with how the two have been booked. I'd argue that Angelina Love probably has a much stronger record than ODB throughout this save, and it's 8 minutes and 29, and with this storyline, it's no surprise that there's a huge distraction. Velvet and Brooke are at ringside throughout the match, trying to cheat, trying to give Love that edge. Eventually, Daphne and Roxy come out, take down Velvet and Brooke. This distracts Angelina Love, who then gets caught off guard and turns into a TKO from ODB. A 58 from Angelina Love is solid. ODB, we are working on getting her back up there. The fact these two have pretty good chemistry is a very good thing to see, and a 52 is an okay rated match. After DNR and ODB have headed up the ramp celebrating, again, they've got one over on the Beautiful People. That's essentially the story of this angle. Everything that the Beautiful People do, they speak on the mic about how they're so much better than these three women, but it's not really translating when they're in the ring, and basically they are the thorn in the side of the Beautiful People. Brooke and Velvet help Angelina Love back to her feet after the match. They're very apologetic about what happened. Love is initially very angry at the bad job these two women had done, and she demands a microphone from ringside. Brooke brings that to her, and Love cuts a furious promo saying that if DNR are going to keep sticking their noses in the Beautiful People's business until they get their shot, then they can have it. Love says that DNR have already got as close as they ever will to the Knockouts Tag Team Championships, but at Hard Justice, the freaks, as she calls them, will be put back in their box and will never have to see or hear from them ever again. Bryan Danielson is then interviewed by Jeremy Borash, who asks about his match with Kevin Steen in the main event, a follow-up from what happened last week on Evolve. However, JB first asks about the questions around Bryan's loyalty to TNA, but Danielson says he's not here to answer that kind of question. He signed a contract with this company in October 2010 because he wanted to compete in this company against the best wrestlers in the world. He stands here today as the world heavyweight champion of this company, so he's not going to get involved in any of that talk. Bryan hasn't looked to make friends or alliances since he came to this company, and nothing has changed. Tonight, American Dragon is focused on his match with Kevin Steen, who he knows is one of the toughest competitors on this roster. If he thinks he's got any chance to be thinking about Ring of Honor, TNA, CM Punk, Samoa Joe, then JB's got another thing coming. Kevin Steen is a high-level competitor, and he's going to have to give his all to defeat him tonight. A solid promo from Bryan Danielson, the level we expect. Frankie Kazarian picking up a victory over Amazing Red and El Generico. And the idea of this match is actually that El Generico gets a kayfabe injury during it. It was supposed to be his shoulder, but it actually says a cracked sternum. So it's funny how that happens, that we were going to have a storyline injury for El Generico, and there's actually a real one. So I suppose you change things in the ring a little bit, but still Frankie Kazarian pinning the injured El Generico with a fade to black. And the idea was that Generico was building up that momentum, but actually injures himself. I don't know whether the game will tell us who injured him or whatever, but it's a okay match, decent match as the game says, to end the first hour. Frankie Kazarian, the new #1 contender, doesn't tell us who injured him, so we can probably say that it's fair that he injured himself on some kind of move. A cracked sternum for El Generico, again hopefully not something that's going to keep him out long term, especially with something else that I have planned. But Frankie Kazarian stands tall, grabbing a microphone himself and telling Tyler Black that he better be ready for Hard Justice. Kazarian knows that Tyler has a lot of guys watching his back. It's defined his title reign so far, but it just so happens that Kazarian has some friends of his own. The former multiple-time X Division champion says that the playing field will be levelled at Hard Justice, and he's coming for the X Division title. The second hour begins with Jeff Hardy and Sting making their way out, and they cut a promo about their match with the American Wolves at Hard Justice. They also comment on the thing that I mentioned earlier, which is that none of the New Age of Honor are here tonight. I think that previous hour is the first hour since they came in October 2010 where we've not had some New Age presence on the show, because it's been such a huge part of the company that we want almost the void to be felt, and that's why we mention it a few times so people really notice when these guys aren't around. A lot of people are skeptical about them giving a title shot to anybody associated with that group, but the Icon and the Enigma insisted that they get the chance to teach those two a lesson. They were attacked by him just before Victory Road. Jeff Hardy and Sting aren't the kind of guys who will let that lie. Once Richards and Edwards are out the way, they can focus on Bound for Glory. With the biggest show of the year coming up, they want the very best tag team in TNA Wrestling to be their challengers. Having spoken with the man in charge, which they once again say isn't the easiest thing to do, they can officially announce the Bound for Glory Tag Team Series. That will begin next week, as 10 of the top teams in TNA will be split into 2 groups of 5. They will all face each other to earn a spot in the final. At No Surrender, the 2 top-ranked teams from Side A and Side B will face off in 2 semi-finals. There will then be a final on the same night. The winner will go on to Bound for Glory. The Icon Enigma insists that it will be them, but it could just as easily be the American Wolves, of course. Just seeing how good this segment is. 95 is absolutely brilliant. Sting doing well without a script. Really happy to see that. A great segment from these two, massively gaining heat to their storyline. And I know quite a lot of people have asked about whether I'd be doing a Bound for Glory series. The way the world title scene is at the minute, it wasn't really something I could do, but I think with how vibrant the tag team division has been and how many great teams we have, it was perfect for the tag teams to get in on the first ever Bound for Glory series. Who knows, in future years we may do one for the world title, because I really did enjoy the Bound for Glory series, albeit when TNA did it, it wasn't the most organised thing. Jeff Hardy then defeats Tyson Dukes in 6 minutes and 6 with a Swanton Bomb. Sean Spears is at ringside, Sting's at ringside, so we probably get a little spot between them and with Scott D'Amore. But the point is, the World Tag Team Champions stand tall in the ring, and we get further promotion. That Bound for Glory series begins next week. Jeff and Sting will also face the American Wolves at the upcoming Hard Justice. We then get an interview with Kevin Steen about his main event match against Bryan Danielson, and he tells Jeremy Borash that he is confident that he can win his fight against the World Heavyweight Champion. Paul London has told him every trick that American Dragon has up his sleeve, but Steen himself is no stranger to Danielson. Tonight, he is going to prove to everybody that he is a top-level fighter and put himself on the top of the list for the world title shot. So it's a good promo from Steen in that he improvises well, and while he's probably not the favourite going into this match, what a huge win it would be for him. We then get a match between Hamada and Taylor Wilde, which we put over as being requested by the 2 women themselves. They've not been featured much recently. They had been performing as a tag team, but they said, as friends, they wanted to go out and show what they're capable of, and a 60 rated match is good. Hamada defeats Taylor Wilde in 10 minutes and 39, says with a moonsault. I'm not sure about that, because the story of the match as it comes to a conclusion is that after a back and forth technical bout, Hamada shows that extra aggression and really does a number on Taylor Wilde. It gets quite brutal, quite physical, to the point where you're wondering, are these 2 women really friends? Hamada is beating her like she really doesn't like her, but what she's doing is seizing the opportunity and making sure that she picks up the win when the 2 of them get the chance to compete on Impact. Despite that, in the aftermath, Hamada's viciousness completely subsides. It was just about the match, and she actually helps Taylor Wilde back to her feet. It's clear that her partner and friend is hurt, and Hamada does show concern for her. The 2 women leaving together doesn't look like it's caused too much of an issue, but the commentators do speculate that it's going to be difficult for Wilde to look at Hamada the same way after what went down in their match. Maybe Wilde will take it for what it is, but getting beaten down by your best friend, I'm sure, isn't the best feeling in the world. We then get a video package which promotes the Evolve Championship match between Desmond Wolfe and Low Ki on this week's episode of Evolve, which won't be on MTV. Looking back at the one-night tournament that Low Ki won early this month, which was on MTV, the package also features some of Wolf's previous title defences, which were on MTV, but Saturday night, their match will still take place, and like I said, I'll explain that in a little bit. Having been notable by their absence throughout the show, as I've mentioned a few times, the commentators sent to the back, where the new Age of Honor are shown arriving at the building. It's not just these 8 guys, remember, there's ANX, there is Jimmy Jacobs, and there is Steve Corino, all of them coming together, so we see 12 people arriving at the building, so it's going to be quite an intimidating force, and that's the idea. Usually they're on the show and we might see them in groups of 3, all spread throughout Impact, but now Punk has brought them all together, and the idea is that they want to cause mayhem. Security are at the front of the building, they're quickly wiped out. These 12 men are going to have no problem ripping through the backstage area, and together as a unit for the first time we've seen absolutely every member of what I suppose is the new Age of Honor, plus Joe and Punk. The strength of this group is on display as they destroy absolutely everybody. Of course, we can't put more than 8 people on screen in an angle in the game, but the thought is that they come across lots of members of the roster, to the point that we continue to show stuff like this during the main event, which is coming up next, and we'll have split screen moments throughout that match where we maybe see them going to different parts of the building, and while there is more than 12 people on the TNA roster, they're going to be all over the place, the heel locker room, the face locker room, some people in catering or whatever, and the idea is that they strategically, piece by piece, destroy every single member of this locker room. Bryan Danielson then defeats Kevin Steen, and just like Paul London last week, we see Kevin Steen off his game. This is supposed to be a big main event opportunity for this guy, and he's just not at it. Although I did watch an interview this week with Kevin Steen where he said that his matches with Bryan were never as good as he hoped. I think in WWE they did go on to have some good matches, if I'm remembering correctly, but around this time I think they wrestled in PWG, and Steen wasn't necessarily happy with that. But great heat and good wrestling nonetheless. It's still a solid main event. Danielson defeats Kevin Steen in 14 minutes and 24. He gets him in the cattle mutilation, or perhaps the label lock. Steen has nowhere to go. It looks like he's going to submit when from the crowd, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly come out. They jump Bryan Danielson, causing the disqualification. So Steen would have lost, but it does protect him a little bit, I suppose. And they're just rabid. These two young guys, quickly recognised by Mauro and Taz as Future Shock. Both Ring of Honor rookies, young guys who were coming up in the ranks when Ring of Honor closed down. And we've seen, of course, the destruction caused by the New Age of Honor throughout that match. There is going to be nobody left to help Bryan Danielson. Everybody has been taken down, and that allows Cole and O'Reilly to hold Bryan Danielson in place as CM Punk comes out from the back. Joining Bryan in the ring, Punk takes a microphone, removes the TNA branding, and grabs the face of the barely conscious World Heavyweight Champion. He's trying in vain to break free from Cole and O'Reilly, and he has no choice but to listen to what Punk has to say. Punk tells Bryan Danielson that he knows who he is deep down, and Punk says that he needs him to embrace that. American Dragon is warned that he has a decision to make, a huge decision to make, and having seen what they've just done to the entire TNA roster, it shouldn't be a difficult one for the champion. A day of reckoning is coming for this company. A revolution is coming to this business, and he is giving Bryan the choice of coming home or going down with the sinking ship of TNA. So Punk doing fantastically, and this is the level of segment that we want to see from him. The fact that we put him in a meaningful segment with another big star has helped this get the rating that it deserves, and Punk intense and very clear in his message to Bryan Danielson there. Danielson has done everything to remain out of this us v them scenario. He's of course so closely associated with Ring of Honor, but his focus has just been on competing, and as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, that has been the only thing on his mind. But Punk is basically saying, you're with us or against us. You can't play both sides, or you can't try and keep out of this. You have got a choice to make. You will either join us, or like everybody else, Angle, AJ Styles, the Forefathers, whoever you want to name, you will go down with them, and you will go down with this company. And 81 is a really good episode of Impact. Very happy with that. Increased our popularity in 22 regions, and I'm just happy with the show overall, to be fair. Solid in-ring action throughout the night, a couple of really great segments as well, and let's go now into Evolve. And the show begins with a video package putting over Low-Ki as he challenges Desmond Wolfe in tonight's main event. But first, I suppose I should explain how this show is happening. We were cancelled from MTV last week, but I did have deals with international broadcasters, so while I thought Evolve was done, it actually wasn't. There is a feature in the game that means that you can't get on a new network. I think it's under the Viacom umbrella for 5 years, which is annoying because I like the idea of Evolve maybe going to Spike. I think any other network won't take us for another year. So what I did, because I don't think that's a very reasonable thing to be in the game, I created my own broadcaster. Cost us a few $1 million. I think it's medium sized, so it's not like I'm going to be putting everything from TNA on there, and it's only based in the US for the time being. Of course, it was a couple of years before the WWE Network came and these sort of streaming services became the norm, but I think the idea of us just being able to release Evolve as a web show, I think that's fair enough. And of course it's not going to get the ratings that it was getting. We were constantly getting over 1 million, but it just allowed me to book Evolve with a little less pressure. The minimum expectation for our own network is 0, so I can basically do what I want. And given it was basically a bit of a B show, I think I am going to now enjoy booking it a little bit more. Some of the less used people, rather than having to shoehorn big segments in there, I'll just be able to book this as the show as I originally intended it to be, which was the wrestling show focused mainly on the in-ring action and some of the less utilised people, and Loki and Desmond Wolfe hopefully can start off this new era with the show with a huge main event. The American Wolves then defeat Eric Young and Shark Boy. Last week it looked like Eric Young was turning to Larry Sweeney. This week he's gone in a different direction. He teams with Shark Boy and gets squashed by the number one contenders, the American Wolves. Good performances from Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards. That's the level that we need to see, maybe even a little bit better at the pay-per-view from them. An okay match, but really it was just about showcasing the American Wolves, who then respond to the Icon and the Enigma. They're saying that it won't even take them 6 minutes to stop those two at the pay-per-view. They are going to destroy the myth of the Icon and the Enigma, Jeff Hardy and Sting. Having made his way to the back, we see a beat-up Eric Young asking Sweeney for feedback on his performance, and Larry Sweeney just eviscerates the guy, runs him down. He has no interest in bringing him into Sweet and Sour because, as he puts it, Eric Young will never be a superstar. Magnus, Matt Jackson and Nick Jackson all laugh along in the background, and we see Eric Young with his head down, looking hurt. This man has reached rock bottom, and we don't know where he goes from here. We then get an interview with Desmond Wolfe. He is looking forward to facing Loki, puts him over as one of the toughest, most hard-hitting competitors in the business, one of the hardest people he's ever faced, and he can't wait to face him tonight in the main event. Sara Del Rey then defeats Jazz 8 minutes and 6, so it takes a little bit longer, giving them chance to hopefully have a decent match, which it wasn't, but Sara Del Rey picks up the victory with a Royal Butterfly and stands tall following her pinfall victory. She's got to bounce back after losing her Knockouts Championship rematch, and she's back on the path towards the title with another solid win. We then get a recap of the Bound for Glory series announcement, and various teams discuss it. On screen we have Beer Money, LAX, Motor City Machine Guns and WGTT, but there's plenty of other teams, and we will see that tournament begin next week on Impact. I'm really looking forward to booking all these excellent tag matches. Some guys doing well, James Storm not following a script well, and it's an okay segment. As we go into ODB and DNR's response to the Beautiful People, of course, they've run the Beautiful People show, which is their own vehicle to spout nonsense about their opponents and rivals. Well, ODB is bringing back her not very often used trash talking with ODB talk show, and DNR throw insults back at the Beautiful People. They were called freaks on Thursday by Angelina Love, and this is their chance to just throw some personal digs at Angelina, Velvet and Brooke. We then go into the main event, a good main event, and Desmond Wolfe successfully makes defense number 3 of his Evolve title. Low-key may be getting a bit of a reputation as a choker in title matches here, but the other two he was screwed out. This time it's just a superb match, 2 excellent competitors, and there is no harm in losing to Desmond Wolfe. I don't feel somebody who has kind of become separate from the main show. He's not been on Impact much other than to promote his Evolve title shots, but I think that in creating a bit of a prestige for this title, having Desmond Wolfe have such a strong first reign of just putting in these great matches, which again, that's what Evolve's about, that's what the Evolve title is about. It's always going to be these great wrestlers showing what they can do in decently lengthed matches, and Desmond Wolfe does just that. 74 I'm happy with, and after the match, Jay Lethal once again makes his presence known, once again showing how much he wants this title by attacking Desmond Wolfe with a steel chair. That's been a little bit of a recurring thing for him, and it's to get across how much frustration there is inside this man. He just slams Wolfe with a chair until the chair breaks, and he reiterates over the champion's broken body that he wants a shot at the Evolve title. Wolfe's made it clear all he has to do is earn a title shot. He's had chances and he's failed, but Jay Lethal doesn't seem to want to do that. Again, it's a rating that would have caused us problems previously, so again, while it wasn't good, of course, to lose the MTV deal, it does just take that little bit of pressure off that I can focus on Impact being as good as it possibly can be, and then enjoy booking Evolve a little bit more. So I think overall this is going to be a good thing. I did have an idea that when I moved Impact to MTV, I would put Evolve on Spike for that very reason. I didn't end up doing it because I thought, why would I voluntarily move to a network that's going to get us less viewers? Of course, in retrospect, I probably should have done that, but nonetheless, I'm happy with how this week has gone. Unless Kurt Angle's injuries are too bad, El Jericho out injured, so that's annoying. I'm hoping it's not going to be too long. I will look on the medical screen here. So Kurt Angle is 19 days but can work through it. I still do have to think about whether I want somebody carrying an injury into a main event of a pay-per-view. That's something to think about. El Generico having a cracked sternum is really annoying because, well, first of all, him and Colt Cabana were going to be one of the teams in the Bound for Glory Tag Team Series, and the storyline was actually going to be that El Generico was working through an injury. He was injured in that match in terms of the booking, so that we could then have them have a bad month, and then it was going to evolve into El Generico's storyline going into Bound for Glory. He's now actually injured, so whether I take Colt Cabana out or replace El Generico with somebody else. So yeah, again, something where I'm going to have to rework plans, but that's one of the more enjoyable things in the game. I think that these injuries can come up, these incidents can happen that change the course of what you're going to do. So while it's not ideal, and while it may actually really hinder the planned push that I had for El Generico, and I thought that was going to be a really good storyline with Cabana. I won't go into that too much now because it's a storyline that's never going to happen. But thank you for watching, and hopefully you'll join me next week for episode number 99 and the go home shows to Hard Justice 2011.